All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode and another season of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here recording episode number 118 on our standard Wednesday episode recording drop time. And we're firing up a new season. For those of you that have been with us for a while, you'll be familiar with a little bit of kind of the layout and how we operate here in season and out of season. But if you're a new listener and you're stumbling on the podcast, or you started listening to us this fantasy season and you haven't been with us for an off season before, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. But before we get to that, we'll say hello to the fellas and welcome back to another season of the pod, and welcome back to the pod after about a 4 or 5 week break from the Super Bowl. So we'll say hello to Zach, and then we'll throw it over to Armin shortly. So Zach, nice little break to recharge the batteries, and I know this is very much one of your favorite times in the NFL season, so I know we got a lot to look forward to here.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Between starter free agency and the this month or month and a half until the draft, lots of exciting stuff for NFL, and then obviously with that comes NFL fantasy football. So lots of exciting changes to come for us for sure.
Then Armand, I know last year was a little bit of a different boat for you with being a Vikings fan. There wasn't a ton of hype around the offseason because the team was locked and loaded. There wasn't a bunch of free agency moves. The draft position they were established, but this year there's lots of murmurs going around the Viking community and what they're going to do at the Q, what they're going to do with their free agency signings. Are they going to draft a Q? There's lots of things to be excited for and be invested in as a Vikings fan this offseason. So I imagine same as you, you're locked and loaded to the old Twitter sphere, or at least the sports markets of some sort, and getting yourself locked and loaded for another NFL season.
Well, yeah, it's been a busy few weeks here, so I've only been really in the Vikings verse here. I'll say in the last few weeks. Otherwise, I haven't been paying too much attention to every other murmur besides the big names and what's been going on with extensions and whatnot and releases. But you know what? Yeah, starting to ramp up. Get ready to start watching as free agency frenzy starts, and excited to see. It's a lovely time as you put it to be an NFL fan because everybody's got optimism here, and the Vikings, with it being the biggest, most important position on the field, having question marks around it. It's exciting to see what's going to happen because you got to expect with Kevin O'Connell there and what he does with QBs and offense in general, what will happen. It'll be exciting to see what they do.
Yeah, I'm excited this year. This is the first year as a Lions fan where there's so much optimism about not only the team you've got, the foundation that's built, and then how you can make that team better. It's always, can we add that piece to be competitive, add that piece to be good? And now it's like, okay, what pieces can we add to get to the next level? And with so many big name veterans, I'll call, especially secondary players being released from Seattle and being released from Buffalo, those are big holes to be filled. So they're instead of having to spend that high draft pick capital going into those positions in a defensive position, they might be able to sign one of those veterans and a leader in the defensive side and get the ball moving. So I'm this is a great time. I'm excited. I'm excited for fantasy. I'm excited for football. It's a lot of fun. And it seems like, well, we were talking in the group chat there that we restart this day and have a little bit of a break, and all of a sudden we blinked and Zach goes in the chat, okay, so we're recording today or what? And I'm like, oh yeah, man. I guess we got to that day here. Here we are. So it came quick, but it's a good time because we get an opportunity to talk a little football and get back after it. So just a brief rundown of how this is going to work. So if you haven't been with us before, like I mentioned, in season we record every week. Every week's a new week of fantasy, new things to talk about, new matchups to talk about. It's a complete revolving door weekly. But in the off season, there's not as much to talk about. The off season kind of runs linear where there's big events that happen and then we fill the time with a lot of fun stuff that keeps you in the loop. So we always do one episode every 2 weeks. Drops on the Wednesday unless there's something that happens, like logistically or scheduling wise, we usually maybe push it to the Thursday, but we always try and drop it on the Wednesday. And a lot of them have to do with like games or something interactive or game shows. That's a big part of what we do and competitions. And lots of times it's very engaging for the listener as well too, where you can play along at home and try and guess what we're going to try and guess or what you think the answer is, and you get to participate at home. So a lot of fun for the listeners during the off season. Zach always says this is one of his favorite times of the year, and I can attest to that too, but mostly because I'm very competitive and I enjoy doing the games just as much as I enjoy talking about the football this time of year. So we're gonna get things back up and running. And we've hinted at already, we're just on the edge of that free agency period. The franchise tag window has closed, so now we officially know who will become a free agent unless they sign an extension of some sort with that team before the free agency period. But we know we're here, we're ready to rock and roll. It is that time. So as per usual, Zach always sets up this little fun game for us where he gets the free agent frenzy going, and Arm and I kind of speculate, go back and forth as to which team that this player may or may not land in. So we'll do that, and then at the end of the episode, every single episode, we have what's called an ice cold hot take, and we rotate. One of us each episode is going to share a hot take, and then we kind of poke some holes in it and have a little fun with it. And at the end of the year, we go back and look at them and kind of have a chuckle at which ones were not even close, and some of them either hit or were very, very close. So that's a little bit of the how the breakdown works. We'll talk about news and notes every week. This one right now, just because of so much has happened last little bit, I've been posting a lot on social media, so trying to keep you up that way. But as in the next episode, 2 weeks from now, we'll have our insiders and headliner section. We talk about the big news and stuff that happened in those 2 weeks period, and that's essentially what you can expect from us every 2 weeks until draft season, like not NFL draft season, but fantasy draft season, where we ramp things back up to one episode per week. So I guess after that long-winded explanation of what to expect here from these episodes, we'll get things going here, and Zach will queue up our little free agency frenzy PowerPoint. Maybe Zach, you can give a little Cole's Notes version of how this works and what they can expect, and then we'll get the competitive nature juices flowing.
Yeah, 100%. This is certainly one of my preferred uh things that we do here on the pod, and it's always fun to see how my opinions and my ideas correspond and relate to your opinions. So, if you haven't been with us before, how this works is I have a few quarterbacks, a couple running backs, some receivers, and a few tight ends that I view as the headliners of this upcoming free agent class as of today, Wednesday, March 6th. On that, for each athlete, for each player, I have a few teams that I think would be a good fit for them. When it is your turn, each of you can pick any of those teams, but you're also free to have a wild card, a
Throwback
team of your own choosing.
Throwback, one of my
Pardon?
favorites was Ryan's Fitzpatrick Fox News. That was like still one of my favorites, and it's hilarious because it hit by the end of the year. So I think we were
Yeah.
we were right on two aspects of that one, but that's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, so we'll keep track of the teams that you guys pick, and we'll see how well we do. This one won't have a winner at the end of today's show. Free agency doesn't kick off officially until the 13th, I believe. So next week. However, the legal tampering period begins on Monday at around 10 o'clock, I believe, 10 a.m. Monday morning, where teams and agents and players are officially able to contact one each other legally. But I'm sure that has been happening for a few weeks now. As always, with the franchise tag window closing yesterday, we have lost a few marquee players that I was very excited to see possibly hit the market. Michael Pittman Jr. being one of them. And then Mike Evans signed a contract recently. Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Texans, signed a contract recently. and T. Higgins was also franchised. So a lot of the players that would have really made this an exciting free agent class have been either re-signed or franchise tagged, but there's still, quite a bit of meat left on the bone here in the free agent market. I will preface this with just giving a quick little rundown of where some of the teams sit in terms of available salary cap space. These numbers are all from overthecap.com. Right now, the Commanders are leading the league with $91 million in available salary cap, followed closely by the Patriots at $89 million. Now there's a bit of a gap. The number 3 team is Tennessee with $75 million. And surprisingly, the Texans are 4th with $70 million. Then there's a big gap with the Cardinals with $56 million, Chicago with $56 million, and your Detroit Lions with $51 million in available salary cap space. And then at the bottom of the list, we have the 49ers with negative $285,000, Buffalo negative $9 million, Baltimore negative 9.5, Dallas negative 10, Denver negative 16, New Orleans negative 17, Miami negative 18, and the Chargers negative 19. And the reason I bring this up is because the teams that have a lot of space can obviously throw big contracts at these players and quite likely overpay for their services. While the teams with negative salary cap space, they will be in a difficult spot to bring in some of these players unless they're able to structure the contracts where the first year salary isn't a very big salary and they backload the contract with large amounts of money. So, like always, we'll start with the quarterback position. And the first quarterback is Kirk Cousins. Cousins is 35 years old. Last year, an injury shortened season. He still had 2,331 passing yards, 18 TDs, 5 interceptions, and CBS Sports predicts a 3-year, $118 million contract. Armand, I will give this one to you with the first pick here. Who do you think, where do you think would be a good destination for Kirk Cousins? Here I have the Falcons, the Vikings, and the Commanders as possible landing spots that I could envision him going to.
This is gonna be super telling whether Armand actually likes Kirk Cousins or not. So I like that he has to go first.
Yeah, you bastard. You know what? Like I used to hate on him, and he's been growing on me more and more and more. Um, you know what? Oh, he seems to be loved and loves being in Minnesota. I feel like he's gonna try and stay there if he can. So I think that's the most likely one. After that, I would say the Falcons would be the best choice for him with the weapons that they have there. And hopefully a renewed offensive mandate.
So then, going off that, safe to assume your answer would be Mini.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that
JC, what do
doesn't
you
mean
think?
that I necessarily think that it will happen for sure. But like this one is a really tough one, actually. It's hard to predict.
There's
But I
so many
think Kirk's
rumors
gonna
floating
try and
around.
make it happen.
There's
What?
so many rumors floating around. Like it's just like it seems like, especially when it's around Atlanta. Like Atlanta, it's like, oh, they're gonna draft JJ McCarthy. Oh no, they're trading for Justin Fields. Oh no, they've already got a deal signed with Kirk Cousins. Like Atlanta's such a dark horse. I feel like once Atlanta's shoes drop falls, then I think the rest of them are gonna fizzle. But it's funny. I was actually just having a conversation with some buddies about this, and I said once Kirk Cousins signs the contract, it's gonna go just straight domino effect. Like, I think there's so many teams that are holding out to find out if they're in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes or not because I can't remember, Armin, if we talked about this on the pod or not, or maybe it was a while back, or maybe I'm just just misremembering this. But like we talked about Kirk Cousins being very good quarterback, like a top
Yeah,
10 NFL level quarterback, and that might
yeah.
be hot take spicy in itself, but um. I had a dark horse and I chickened out. I was gonna say the Denver Broncos. That was a team that I just, I had a feeling, but
I
I
don't think
just
it's fit there.
no, that's I'm going Atlanta. I'm going Atlanta. They are the hotness of this offseason of picks and cap space, and I think there's going to be a lot of fun opportunities there, especially for fantasy perspective. So I'm leaning towards the Atlanta Falcons. That's a team that has messed around with the Q position for a while now, and it has been very unsuccessful. And when you compare the last time they had a successful quarterback was Matt Ryan, and these two comp very, very similar. Obviously, different offensive schemes, different coaching staffs, but just a little bit of a little wrinkling in there to just it fits the mold a little bit. So this one is one that I'd be excited, sorry, either one. If it's Atlanta or Minnesota, because I think it has massive fantasy implications either way. But I am going to say Atlanta.
And a
Yeah,
dark
both.
horse that I'm going to throw out here, San Fran.
That would be spicy. That would be almost borderline irresponsible of San Francisco to do that, but that would be they have the Kirk Cousins as of 24-year-old right now on the roster, I feel. But anyways, Zach, I'm curious I'm curious what Zach thinks here.
Well, San Fran would be real interesting. I think part of the reason why they're able to have such a stacked team is because they are paying Purdy the NFL equivalent of peanuts. Like
Half a room rented in San Francisco.
yeah, basically. Like I'm sure Williams was making more on a per game basis at SC than Purdy was making this year for a full year of NFL service. It's interesting, these two teams. I feel like whoever does not get Cousins will be uh, a very likely destination for a JJ McCarthy
Yes.
or a trade up for QB3 come draft season. For what it's worth, though, I do agree with you, JC. I think the Falcons make a lot of sense. And that's just going off a lot of the rumors and speculation that I've seen on social media.
And that's a winnable division too. So for like him to go and try and win, like obviously getting paid is nice, but he's made good money really messing with the franchise tag there for how long. I don't know if he's going to go back to Washington, but go win. Like that's a division that you can win this year, like upcoming with the weapons you got and stepping in there. Minnesota, that's the tougher division with two very good young teams. So I think that's one other thing to add a wrinkle in there too that I didn't mention prior.
So our next quarterback is Baker Mayfield, former number one overall pick in the NFL draft, still only 28 years old, just finished maybe one of his best seasons in the NFL, threw for 4,404 passing yards, 28 TDs, and 10 interceptions. CBS Sports has him going for a uh, fairly respectable 4 years, $90 million. There's been a lot of speculation, especially since Mike Evans re-signed earlier this week, that those two are kind of a package deal. Evans wouldn't have re-signed unless he felt good about Mayfield coming back, but still, as of right now, Mayfield is unsigned. Some possible destinations that to me make a lot of sense would be Atlanta, presuming they don't get Cousins, uh, going back to Tampa Bay, or possibly coming to the New England Patriots. So, Armand, you went first last time. So, Jordan, why don't you take it away?
So for a lot of the same reasons you just had mentioned, Zach, I'm going chalk. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Pats one is very interesting. Like I feel like there's some prestige and being a guy that's bounced around a little bit, going to play for the Pats is like a prestige aspect. So that was kind of fun just to sit here and think about that as you're kind of introducing the player. But I think at the end of the day, for a lot of the same reason you talked about, like the package deal of Evans, like if they couldn't commit to Evans or to him being there, I don't think Evans was going to resign. He's amalgamated himself into that team already. He doesn't have to go start a new offense and hope he succeeds, et cetera, et cetera. You're tied to a prolific I think first ballot Hall of Famer wide receiver. I think I don't know if it's a chalk answer or not. Maybe it is, and maybe it's spicy that he stays there. But I do think Tampa, and that's where I feel like it wouldn't surprise me even in the slightest.
Yeah, I was worried that I'd have to delete this slide and maybe throw in another quarterback the past couple of days because I thought there's no way he's not resigning. Armand, uh feel free to pick another team, or if you're thinking the same, you can definitely pick Tampa as well.
Yeah, you know what? As fun as it is to see things move and be contrarian to and all that jazz, but I think like Mayfield is a kind of that like at home guy. He's not like he's fiery, but he strikes me as a guy that wants to show loyalty and would want to spend a number of years in one place after, especially after bouncing around for quite some time. He really took on to Cleveland when he was there, and you could tell like he kind of wanted to be the guy there, and then he kind of got tossed to the side, and now he seems to have found a home in Tampa Bay, and Mike Evans signing also kind of starts to put things into perspective a little bit more. He's got Godwin still. It's gonna be he's got lots of opportunity to repeat the numbers that he did last year again. So I'm chalking it up again as well, Tampa Bay. But Patriots would be funny kind of because then the first good QB Tampa Bay has after Tom Brady leaves is Baker Mayfield, and then he could be the next good QB that the Patriots have after Tom Brady leaves there and himself as well. So that would be kind of funny to see.
They rallied around him. Like Tampa likes him. They put him on a little playoff run. They
Yeah.
were they were 1 2 minute drill away from going to the conference final. Like Tampa likes him. I see them getting this one done.
Yeah, this one seems like a layup, really just a matter of time, I think.
Yeah, thanks for starting
Um,
that one, Zach. I appreciate it.
I think this next one might be the one that I am the most interested in, especially among the quarterbacks. And it is recently released Russell Wilson, 35 years old, coming off a respectable season. I was quite surprised at how respectable his season was when I was putting this slide in. On the year, he had just over 3,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. CBS Sports predicts a very humble 1 year, $1.5 million contract. And that is only because the Denver Broncos are paying him something like $39 million to kick rocks and get out of there. So he doesn't need to take this big money contract. And any contract that he signs will go against the money that is owed. So if he signs for $1 million with a new team, then it's 39 million subtract 1 million. So then he's still getting 1 million from his new team and now 38 million from the Broncos. So uh, he can sign a very humble contract, which would make the economics work for a lot of teams. Some teams that I thought might be in the market for this type of quarterback would be the Raiders. Uh, Surprise, surprise, the Falcons again. Of course, not getting Cousins. Maybe they don't get Baker. And then the Pats. I think this would be really interesting for the Pats. Certainly not as a long-term answer at this stage of the game, but maybe you get a Pats, maybe they get somebody at 3, or maybe they trade back a little bit. They draft a quarterback. Maybe he's not right there, ready to start week 1. Let Wilson play for a little bit, or maybe let Wilson play all year, give that guy time to really learn the NFL game, and then next year your second year quarterback is ready to hit the ground running. That would be my pick, I think, especially with the economics. Though Armand, I am interested in hearing what you have to say.
Well, you know what? You were such a good salesman on that. You almost made me buy it. But I'm gonna remain where I was thinking. And if the first two go the way I was saying, there you go. Atlanta's gonna be looking for a guy yet at this point, and Wilson is gonna be looking for a place where he will be successful on this 1 year contract so that the next year he actually has the ability to get a starting job somewhere else, or to re-sign with that team on a more let's say not gimme or like free contract for that team. And so I'm thinking Atlanta is the best fit here because for saying they lose out on Cousins, they lose out on Baker. Well, they're looking for someone still. You give Drake London and Kyle Pitts to good old Russell Wilson there, and we could make some things happen. I think he still got it. Like you said, the stats were kind of surprising. They weren't awful when you look at them compared to what everyone was saying about him last year. Um, and he could still do some good with those guys, I think. And Bijan too, I guess.
Armin, you're gonna hate this. Like you are gonna hate. I'm going off the board. The Minnesota Vikings are gonna sign him. If if they lose out on Cousins to Atlanta, I can see them legitimately taking a, like the fourth or fifth QB off the board, let him sit, let him develop, possibly transition at the bye week. But even if they lose Kirk Cousins, they're in a position they can compete. They have the wet like other than losing Kirk Cousins last year, they had to hodgepodge their most random three quarterbacks together, and they were still competing for a playoff spot with 3 weeks left in the year. So if they had like even above average quarterback play with Justin Jefferson coming back healthy, that offense could have carried them to possibly the playoffs and a wild card matchup. So if you get Russ for cheap, you can put some of that free agency money into wherever you want to go. You draft the next best quarterback available with your draft position, and then you make a run. Like they're bottom half of the league with available cap space. You can get him for cheap and you do one last hurrah. And if it goes super sideways, you already have the quarterback for the future for your rebuild. Like if you're losing Cousins, you would assume that you're going for their full rebuild. But then if you can hold on to him for a shot in the dark and hope, and if he's garbage, you sign him for nothing and you just cut him at the bye week, and then you roll JJ McCarthy or you roll Penix or you roll whoever it is. I think if they lose out on the Cousins sweepstake, as much as you hate the possibility, Arm, I think this is a no-brainer for Minnesota.
Well, I don't hate that possibility, actually, Jordan.
Oh, I thought
I,
you
I
hated.
like
I thought
that,
you.
and that would be I would say that'd be the second most likely thing.
Oh, I thought you
Like
hated Russell Wilson.
what?
I thought you hated Russell Wilson.
Oh no, I don't hate Russell
Oh,
Wilson.
okay, never mind. Okay, then disregard. Maybe you like that, but regardless, doesn't change my take.
No, I agree. I'd say that's like based on mine, the most likely I think is Atlanta loses out on the Cousins sweepstake and Cousins stays in mini. But I think if Cousins does leave and goes to Atlanta, well, then that does open the door for Russell to go there, and kind of what Zach was saying with the Pats. But I think it's more likely that happens in Minnesota than in New England, just because, like you said, the weapons that are there, that team is actually a pretty good. Well, it's got a lot of offensive weapons for Wilson to play with there, and hopefully earn himself another contract the year after.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. I think these three quarterbacks could uh surprisingly really impact how um the draft unfolds for some of these teams. Because I think Falcons and the Vikings, I think they could be really big players uh in that draft in the draft come April for the quarterback position if they aren't able to pick up a Cousins or a Russ. Of course, assuming Baker is staying in Tampa. Now we are on to the running back position. Um, right now, as it is, the available free agent running backs, this list is a list of some heavy hitters, some big names that many of us should be very familiar with. And I think this list really kind of lends itself to the idea that the NFL doesn't value running backs, and nobody really wants to give even star running backs that second big contract. So the first running back that we have here is Saquon Barkley, still just 27 years old. This past season, he had 962 rush yards for 6 TDs on the ground, 280 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns through the air. CBS Sports predicts a 3-year, $22 million contract. I think teams that would make sense would be the Eagles, the Commanders, and the Texans. Armand, you went first with Russ. So Jordan, you can go now with Saquon.
So as we go through some of these, I'm in a conundrum because there's the real the battle of two evils here. There's the what do you want to happen for fantasy, and there's the what do you think is going to happen. So as the off season's already been, spinning around, I'm having troubles, and a lot of it is selfishness with my fantasy team. So I can't even lie about that. That's just the honest truth. But this is one of those ones where I think it would be really good for fantasy, and I think it'd be really good for him. And it's with the Houston Texans. I think the Houston Texans is in a situation where they have cap space available to go spend money. They are the top four teams in the NFL with cap space. A lot of that is because two of their best offensive weapons are rookies. So it gives you that window to be able to go spend money. They're a team that we already know really wanted to establish the run last year, and we're just incapable of doing it because of the weapons they had, and not necessarily the identity of the team being running, but being able to have that running back to be able to give you those cracks and give you some space, but also his ability in the receiving game to be able to give CJ Stroud some additional time and additional space. There's another running back that I think would also be a really good fit with the Texans. But the selfishness is that I want this to be the spot because this would be a premier landing spot. I had a good conversation with a buddy during our lunch break this past week, and we were just talking about how it is a dying thing being a bell cow back. And we're going to see in a couple of years, if not right away, that it's just going to be done. It's over. There will just be no such thing as a bell cow back. We already seen Doug Peterson already coming out saying that he's going to have to manage their running back room a little bit better. And I didn't even think that was a bell cow situation. So I think we're in a pivotal moment of fantasy football, but this would be a ton of fun. This would be so much fun. A really good, young, high-powered offense made the playoffs. It could be a lot of fun to watch this upcoming season with a running back that could crack it off at any moment if he's healthy. Big if, that's been his Achilles heel over the past handful of years. So long-winded speech of me just praying it out to existence that Saquon signs in Houston. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what? I think the best landing spot for him, like you said, both fantasy and for just football wise, is Houston. Like you pointed out, like they need that running back. They got a young QB, and it's a good time to invest in that running back position and be able to actually pay him while you got the young QB that's on the rookie contract that you don't have to pay as much. And then when you pay the QB, then you can start kind of like what some other teams have done with their high end paying Q is then they just stop paying the RB. So right now they have the luxury of being able to do that. I don't mind the Philly one either. Kind of depending on I think if Saquon wants to go for a championship or if he wants to be on a good team with a less chance of a championship, but be more of that bell cow guy. Because like Philly, I think the odds of winning it all would be a bit higher than Houston. But they are historically not really a bell cow team. But maybe that's something Saquon might appreciate is not having to have the whole load on him as much. So I'm kind of a toss up between those two. I think the funnest would be Houston. It'd be a dynamic offense. They don't have an amazing defense yet, so it'd be some shootouts that he'd be involved in, and he might be able to put up some monster numbers in Houston. Whereas Philly, he'd probably have some pretty good games. He wouldn't get the goal line touches. Like he'd be kind of nerfed a little bit that way, but he would definitely bring another punch to that Philly offense and maybe put them over the hump that they hit last year.
Okay, backpedaling a little bit. I don't think it's a hot take to say that Houston has a better chance of going deep than Philadelphia. Lots is changing in Philadelphia. That maybe that is spicy, maybe not. I don't know. But losing Kelsey, watching what happened in that defense in that second half of the year, you're another year older. I don't know. Maybe it's just the new hotness and it's a lot of fun to talk Houston, but I don't think it's spicy to say that Houston has a lesser chance of making a playoff run than Philadelphia. But maybe that's just like I said, maybe that's just a spicy take, and I'll save that for the end of the episode. But we'll fire it back to Zach here.
Yeah. Armin, did you settle on a team? Did I miss that?
I figured it was a toss up, but I think you have to figure out what Saquon wants more. Does he want flashy or does he want to make a run for it? I would say for Saquon, he probably wants to win. So you go with the team with the more history of it, which is Philly. I'll say Philly,
Safely.
even though I like Houston better.
Thought we might have had a clean sweep there. All three of us going with the Texans.
This is
It's been
the
boring. We've been clean sweeping way too many, so
this
I'm
is the
mixing
Baker
it up.
Mayfield of running back selections.
Yeah, I think with running backs, like of course we like to think as fans, loyalty to the team that picked you, or maybe to your hometown team, or chase after the Super Bowl wins. But like we saw here, like Saquon Barkley, arguably one of the best running backs in the league, 3-year, $22 million contract. Like I think these guys are looking for money, looking for the big contract. So I wouldn't be surprised if most of, if not all, these running backs end up going to where they are offered the most cash.
Okay, I gotta
Um,
look this up here. That if that's the contract he gets, is that not the exact contract that Jamal Williams got to go sign in New Orleans? If it wasn't, it's very close. I think he was 3-year 18 or 3-year 19 or something. So it'd be like pretty close to the projected contract.
Just
And
because they don't value RBs,
and
man.
we're talking like yeah, like that's not even a
there
comparison. That's not
there
even a
is a
comparison.
reason why the New Orleans Saints are routinely bottom five in the NFL salary cap.
That's a good point.
Currently owing a staggering $17 million to the cap.
That's a good point.
Okay, so this next one, King Henry, certainly has seen his best days gone by. 30 years old. Not often do we see dynamic running backs this side of 30, but still last season he had 1,167 yards on the ground, 12 touchdowns, and 216 receiving yards. CBS Sports predicts a 1-year, $11 million contract. For what it's worth, if there ever was going to be a running back that was going to go chase after a Super Bowl ring, it might be King Henry. A few options that I thought would make sense would be the Ravens, the Eagles, and the Dolphins.
I think is it
Let's see here.
Armin's turn?
Armin's turn to go first.
Yeah, let's start it off here. So Miami, they prioritize speed, so I'm gonna eliminate them right off the bat. Not that King Henry is slow, but he's not 4.3 speed. He's fast for his size, but I don't think Miami it fits the mold for that of Derrick Henry. Baltimore has a history of signing old running backs, so I could see that happening. And then Philly, you know what? Going for the win with either Baltimore or Philly. But I'm gonna go off the board and I'm gonna go with, let's say Jordan was right about Russell Wilson. He ends up going to the Vikings and they're only paying him 1.5 million for this year. So then after cutting Alexander Madison during the offseason here, they have room in their salary cap to pick up a running back and they signed Derrick Henry for a 1 year deal. And they're doing this load up for the 1 year just to kind of see what they got kind of thing, and one trick pony and then reload the next year.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Ay,
It
ay,
sounds
ay.
like a Homer thing, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I honestly I didn't even have that on my bingo card, I'll be real honest. I was looking at Zach's selection here, and I thought, hey, that's a pretty good list. Like he was already tied to Miami at the trade deadline and whatnot. So or not trade deadline, was trade in the offseason, is that correct? I'm trying to remember how that all shook out, but um this one, once again, thinking with my heart then my head, that this would be such a good fit for him in Baltimore. If you put him in Philadelphia, that would be a good fit for football, but not fantasy because he's going to get vultured, tush push, red zone touchdowns constantly. So, like, is he going to help the Eagles? Substantially, he would. But is he going to help your fantasy team? Unlikely. But if you put him on Baltimore, that's the married couple of it's going to help fantasy and it's going to help football. So let's just speak it in existence. Let's just put him in Baltimore. And then that's where I'm going to go. I don't know if that's the most logical analytical work here, but they do have like their depth chart right now is Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, who just destroyed his knee. Was it week 16? Ricky Person or Pearson,
Yeah.
I don't even know his name, so that tells you that. Kevin Brown, who sounds like he's about to do my taxes, and then Owen Wright, who could be the athletic trainer, and I couldn't tell you otherwise. So like that's a list of a
That's
team that
why they all get injured in Baltimore at the running back position.
their
Is
athletic
Owen Wright
trainers, their
good?
running back. So if that tells anything, they need a running back. And yeah, this was a team that was one game away from the dance. So add a veteran guy that can get you those yardage. That I think that'd be a lot of fun. So I'm gonna go Baltimore.
Yeah, the Ravens would be the least surprising destination in my mind.
It
Not that I
fits
think it
their
makes
MO
the
so
most
much
sense,
too.
but yeah, it's just that would be a very Baltimore Raven thing to do, would be to get a good player on a very like reasonable 1 year deal and just like absolutely hammer him, just milk him for everything he's worth. This next one is going to be a little bit interesting as well. Austin Eckler, somebody that we have seen be a previous like 1-1, 1-2 in fantasy drafts, somebody that in years past was considered by some 1A or 1B as the best running back in the league, but certainly fell on hard times this year after a contract dispute in the offseason, or maybe two off seasons ago. Don't quote me on that. And is now finding himself as a free agent at 28 years of age. On the year, he had 628 rushing yards and 5 TDs on the ground, 436 receiving yards, 1 TD through the air. And CBS Sports is predicting a 2 year, $20 million contract. A few teams that I have identified would be the Eagles. Selfishly, I'd love to see him on the Pats and the Ravens. So a few teams that we've seen already here that I think might be in the market for running backs, and a definite homer pick on my end. Uh, let's see. JC, who do you think?
Yeah, this was the one that I was talking about Houston. This would be a perfect fit if he ended up in Houston just because of his pass catching ability. We know what he's about. Austin Eckler's been fantasy gold for many years. But there's so many situations where I'm just like, man, like I can see teams wanting to go for him, but I think this is gonna be a battle between two things. What Austin Eckler perceives himself as being worth and what the NFL perceives his worth. And unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot of bargaining chips in his on his table here because of, like we talked about, he had a down year this past year, and that's incredibly unfortunate for him. So there's a couple of things that are twisting my mind. I'm like, why this could work out, and I'm trying to talk myself into it. And the first one is Dallas, because of the vacated carries and the vacated running back room that could possibly happen there with Tony Pollard becoming a free agent. So that one I see fitting in there because it's a high profile signing that Jerry Jones likes to go and do. The vacated running back room, and like just trying to figure out a way to get that Cowboys team over the hump and work as a receiving back. So that's one, but like they are so buried in cap that I just don't see that being the one. But I think that'd be a lot of fun if that ended up there. This other one that I thought, hey, this would be fun, is the Raiders. If the Raiders do not retain Josh Jacobs, he goes into the division against the team that wouldn't give him the money. Can you imagine the yardage and the touchdowns he's going to try and put up against the Chargers twice a year? I think that would be a lot of fun, especially if Josh Jacobs leaves. So that's a little bit of a fun one that I'm gonna speak into existence to. But in all reality, I think the answer that I'm going to settle on is the Washington Commanders. They've got a lot of money to spend. I think that's an opportunity that they can go and get a running back and spend a little bit of flashy money there. So I'm gonna, he's gonna, like I said, the perceived value versus the actual value is the issue here. That's been the issue for Austin Eckler over this contract dispute over the last couple of years. Washington has a ton of money, so they have that little bit of flexibility that they can overpay for running back. So I feel like that's the one there. They've tried to find the quote unquote CMC that isn't CMC. They tried to get the Antonio Gibson, the receiving back, to get, it never really worked. So I feel like this might be the landing spot that's a little bit of a dark horse and could actually be fun for fantasy too.
What do you make of
Yeah,
that, Armand?
yeah, you make some good points there, Jordan, and I was kind of going along the lines of you as well. Um, to speak to the three teams Zach brought up, the three that Zach brought up, I think the most likely would actually be Baltimore, and I could even see a world where Baltimore gets both Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler for some odd reason, just because that'd be a thing they would do. But I'm leaning
Baltimore
more
doesn't
towards
Baltimore doesn't check down though, and like that's kind of his calling card. So I feel like
yeah.
that'd be I don't know.
It
I had a hard
wouldn't
time
be
with
a
that.
good match. It wouldn't be a good
No, I
match.
had a
That's
hard
for
time with that one.
yeah. Derrick Henry's a better match in Baltimore for sure. But yeah, I'm looking at like if the Texans don't get Saquon like I thought they would, um, Austin Eckler would be a good consolation prize for them. And then yeah, like you said with Dallas with the Jerry Jones like move. So I think if I'm going consistent here, I'm saying the Texans get Saquon, so Eckler doesn't have a spot in Houston, and he ends up going to Dallas.
And
So
he
now we
has to
got
go there cheap.
Saquon. We got Saquon going to the Texans now, Armand.
What
Not
did
to
I say originally?
Philly.
Oh no,
He jumped on board to my claim to fame there.
Yeah.
I guess yours too,
I'm
Zach.
not
I guess.
staying consistent. No. Okay, then I guess Houston. Um,
I do
Yeah.
think it'd be fun in Houston. This would be a fun landing. If Saquon doesn't go there, this would be a great landing, him in Houston.
yeah. Okay, Zach, to put it on the official card, I guess. Let's say Saquon to Houston because I think Philly doesn't need backs. Like I don't think they're gonna be shopping to spend money on backs. So they'll get money in Houston. And then Austin Eckler to Dallas.
Hi, Chihuahua. Okay.
Shake and bake, Ricky Bobby, shake and bake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never to let him know my next move.
Yeah, I think teams like the Commanders, like the Texans, like the Patriots, those are the teams that I could see going after these running backs because they have that excess of salary cap space, and if these players hold out for a little bit more money than what most teams are willing to pay, those teams can they can pay that extra $1 million, that extra 1.5, that extra 2 million, to bring them in, even though they might not be, the best spot for them, but they can afford to overpay. But in a lot of cases, they likely will be some of the better spots for the running backs. The last one that we're going to talk about today is Josh Jacobs, somebody that had another player that had a difficult year, production wise. Jacobs is still only 26 years old. He had 805 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns, and 296 receiving yards. CBS Sports projects 3 years, $30 million. And unfortunately for him, coming off a huge career year, this year didn't quite match those stats. So he may find himself maybe as a secondary choice to maybe to the Barkleys and the Henrys of the world. Continuing on with a theme for the running back position, the Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, and Houston Texans were all landing spots that I thought made a lot of sense. Armand, you can go first here, buddy.
This is where I'm finally going to go on board with the Washington Commanders. I think this is where they sign a guy. They're going to get Josh Jacobs here. Just a hunch. I don't really have any reasoning for it. Let's go.
See, here's like they already have Brian Robinson. Not that he's like ecstatic, but they've already got the Alabama, the Thumpers. Like they're not prolific pass catchers. So I feel like they already have that there where you could go out and get that scat back or the pass kicking back with the extra the extra juice. So I went up the board.
Whoever said Washington managed their roster well,
That's a
Jordan.
good point. There's a reason they're a high drafted team or a high draft capital team here in the upcoming NFL draft. But I think this one is where New York is going to land. They're not going to keep
Ooh.
Saquon, and I feel like they're going to get him on a discount in comparison to what they got Saquon. Um, I'm interested. Like at the end of the day, there's teams like Dallas, there's teams like New York, there's teams like I'm trying to Philadelphia, but Philly never ever spends on running backs. Like I can very much see Swift coming back to Philly on a discounted bargain bin type deal or some other running backs of that caliber that are not the top 5, top 6 running backs in free agency that I feel like they could go get and get them cheap. But there's teams like, i.e., the Giants, that is their identity. Their identity was running the ball, and if you lose Saquon, you're essentially losing your identity. And I would not be incredibly confident in putting my entire organization in the hands of Daniel Jones. And we still have the NFL draft to maybe settle that out if that is the case. But you're going to have a capable running back that you can trust that's going to be able to pound the ball and have to accumulate a lot of touches to be able to create some extra space. And I feel like Josh Jacobs is going to fit into that mold. But I don't feel like he's going to get the 3-year, $33 million like a Saquon would have got, or else they would have just signed Saquon to that deal. I can see maybe being a 2-year, 20 million very front end loaded, like 13, 14 in the first year, and then you got the 6, 7 that they can easily get out of. I can see a deal, something like that, and that would make a lot of sense to the Giants. So a little bit off the board for me on this one. Doesn't mean it's going to be right or even going to be close, but just trying to put all the magical puzzle pieces of every team I've already connected together, so there's no overlap like Armand.
Yeah, I could see the Giants being in the mix for one of these running backs. They have a lot of holes to fill, so I think they might go for that more premier talent positions in the draft, and maybe just try to plug that hole created by Barkley with another free agent running back. That makes some sense. Skipping ahead here, we'll go right on into the wide receivers. Wide receivers was once a very exciting position in free agency, but as I mentioned, either the franchise tag or just re-signing what I consider what many people consider the three best or the three best free agents are no longer available. So we are left with a slightly less than ideal mix here. The first player who I would assume would be the target of many teams will be Calvin Ridley, somebody that's been spoken about quite a bit here on the pod. Calvin Ridley, oops, 29 years old. Last season, 76 receptions, 1,016 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and CBS Sports predicts 4 years, $68 million. Interestingly, the Jags have a provision in his contract, or rather in the trade with Atlanta. If he re-signs with the Jaguars, they owe the Falcons a second round draft pick. If he leaves as a free agent, they owe the Falcons a third round draft pick. So, while I think the Jaguars could certainly stand to retain him, that extra round of draft capital, I think, plays heavily into this discussion. So some teams that I thought would be good fits would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. God, I am hoping against hope the Pats sign this guy, or the Tennessee Titans would be another fit, I think.
Okay, hold on. Let me check that. You want the Pats to sign him, or you don't want the Pats to sign him?
Oh, I am hoping against all hope that they do sign him.
Oh, you do want him.
Oh, want him. Well, I want a weapon.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good point.
really wanted Higgins, couldn't get him. Really wanted Evans, couldn't get him. Really wanted Pittman Jr., can't get him. So we'll go with Calvin Ridley.
So here's why you're not gonna like me,
Tough
Zach.
time to be a Pats fan.
Hey, it's their turn. Okay, suck on it. It's your turn.
Yeah.
So here's why you're not gonna like me, Zach, because I'm not picking the Pats and I'm not going on the board as you've done such great work. Not that I don't see a fit for any of these teams. The one I was really intrigued about was Tennessee as a team that I didn't really think about going after a big free agent. I thought maybe, just keep building through the draft, but you talked about the start of the episode, and I think it's really important to go back to this, that when a lot of these teams have a lot of cap space, a lot of times it is bad teams that need to spend a lot of money to ensure a player comes in place for them. There's like another podcast list, they call it the bad team tax, where like there's the average income you're gonna have to pay this team, and you got to pay them an extra tax to come play for you because you're so bad. And the player doesn't want to play for you because you're bad. So looking at Calvin Ridley, he has, I think, was it last year that he just finished his rookie contract because of all of the chaos that happened around him, of the missed seasons, the suspensions, the mental health leave. Like, I'm not calling mental health leave chaos, but there was the chaos around his contract and his situation. This is a man that needs money fast. He's 29 years old. He's 29 years old and has played very minimal amounts of time in the NFL. And there is no team in the NFL that is worse than them and that has very limited draft capital. That is the Carolina Panthers. Now, they need to spend money, but they don't have a lot of money. They only have 12 million in cap space. But they need to go and get weapons, and they can't do it through the draft, and they need to put weapons around their 101 quarterback to see if he's going to pan out. And I feel like this is a situation where Calvin Ridley is going to see dollar signs and he's going to say, hey, I just need money fast because there's no guarantee that I can play into my 31-year-old year. That's kind of, as we start to see the decline of the talent. So this is going to be his big ticket contract. So I just see who is a bad team that needs a wide receiver. And I guess the Pats kind
The
of fit that
Patriots.
mold. The Patriots really fit that mold. But I don't see the Patriots having to pay a bad team tax. Like, there's still that aura around the Patriots that's like, hey, we're this dynasty, we're this big, daunting NFL team that has this history, and you want to go play there. Nobody wants to go play in Carolina where tickets were being sold for 37 cents before the game. Like that, nobody wants to go play there. So go pay Calvin Ridley a lot of money. That is my intuition of why he'll end up there.
Armand, want to talk me back off the ledge here?
Not really. I just don't see
You're a Calvin
it
Ridley
going
guy,
too
Armand
far.
here. You're a big Calvin Ridley guy. My
Oh,
guy.
Zach is. I thought he would have a better season in Jacksonville
Oh,
than
so you're
he did.
disappointed. You're
Yeah, I'm
disappointed.
disappointed. Yeah,
You're
he
not mad. You're
scorned me. He
disappointed.
scorned me. Yeah. Zach is actually a big Calvin Ridley guy, isn't he?
No, you were. I like Christian Kirk.
Yeah, Christian Kirk, who also got paid the bad team tax. He got paid a lot of money.
Hey, what does the Jet salary cap look like?
Not good. They got 20 million.
Ah, shoot. Well, maybe it could work. Maybe. I'm thinking Jets, to be honest. I think this might be their big splash. They got hopefully Aaron Rodgers coming back this year, get another weapon beside Garrett Wilson, for their push to win it all that they're trying to do here. So I'm thinking either Jacksonville or New York Jets, and I'm gonna land on the Jets with that 20 million cap space. They don't need to make a lot of re-signings because they got a good defense. They got Aaron Rodgers, they got Garrett Wilson, they got Brees Hall. Get one more weapon for Rodgers and let her buck.
We already know where Zach stands here, so I don't know if you need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I went with rival. I'm putting you even more on the ledge there, Zach.
Yeah, I'd be real choked if he went with the Jets. Holy smokes.
Wouldn't even be fun.
Yeah. Alrighty, moving on. Here we go. Next one up here is Marquise Hollywood Brown. Uh, I feels like he's been in the league forever, but still 26 years old. Has never had a huge breakout season. Though this past season respectable still, 51 receptions, 561 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. CBS Sports predicts 4 years, $60 million. I thought Titans, pardon me. Titans, they have lots of money. They need playmakers. Always the possibility of him re-signing with Arizona. And then I would not like this, but it would make a lot of sense. The Chiefs have been looking at speed, looking to replace Tyreek Hill. Hollywood's got speed to spare. So those are 3 teams that I think would make some sense. Armin, what do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I'm landing on KC like
Yeah.
slam dunk here. Actually, like Kadarius Toney's not panning out. They've tried everything to try and replace him. This guy's a little bit more proven. He's got that speed, like you said. He's a deep threat, and that's what they need in this offense. They got all those guys who can run good underneath routes, but it don't help you none if you can't press the defense vertically and force them to honor that a little bit more too. So I'm going KC. And I don't think Marcus Brown or Hollywood's gonna demand that much for money. 4 years, 60 million is a pretty good contract, but I just feel like he's not gonna be that valued compared to other wide receivers. But I could be wrong. But yeah, so I'm thinking KC, a little bit of a value for them, and they get to finally replace Tyreek Hill.
This,
JC?
you know what I thought, and it doesn't help that they're in negative equity in the salary cap. This would have been a fun Buffalo pick. I think this would have been a lot of fun, but there's just no chance that that's happening. So I'm torn between. I think the Casey pick makes a lot of sense. It would be a lot of fun for fantasy. I would hate every second of it because it's making the Super Bowl team that we thought should have never won the Super Bowl even better and probably going to win the Super Bowl again. And I do like Marquez Brown. And this would be. I don't know if it's a trap or an overvalue or what to try and pursue him and whatnot and everything that goes with it. But I also think that there's a dark horse team that we haven't really talked about that could go get a wide receiver, has a ton of cap space, and is gonna get the 101 and the next prospect of stardom at the quarterback position. It's the Chicago Bears. And I feel like that is going to be a fun pick. As if he ends up with Chicago with Caleb Williams stretching, you got to be able to stretch the field. You got DJ Moore with those crisp routes underneath the power. I I kind of feel like that'd be fun. I'm gonna go Chicago, and I hate that because it's the NFC North and whatever. But like, I also hate the KC Chiefs. So It's a battle of two evils, but I'm going off board. I think this would be a lot of fun for Chicago with that rookie quarterback. And they got money to spend.
Interesting.
They got a lot of
Yep.
money to spend.
It's a
They
good
they
one,
certainly
Jordan.
don't have the most, but they're in that next group after the top four. They're right there with $56 million. Certainly make that happen.
What about here's another team to throw out there. What about the Browns? With
Their
Amari
cap.
Cooper, kind of similar receiver. They don't have much cap space, eh? No,
No,
I
they
guess
don't.
Deshaun.
Deshaun Watson. But
Yeah.
the two worst trade contracts ever, Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, and neither of them might start for their teams this upcoming season.
Oh boy.
Let's speed through here. One more receiver. And that's Gabe Davis, the youngin of the group, 24 years old. 45 receptions, 746 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. CBS projects 4 years, $54 million. To me, this one seems like a really good compliment to CD if they can make the money work. I would actually like to see him in a Pats uniform. It's kind of like that second tier receiver on the market if Ridley doesn't pan out. And then again, Chiefs. I saw a tweet over the weekend and I thought, God, like that would really suck. Like, so
Speedster.
JC, quickly, what do you think here?
Man, what do you think of Houston? I know they already have two pretty good wide receivers, but a speedster over top, I think, could open up that offense. I just don't know if they're going to dig deep into that bank to spend that money, but I'm going to speak that one into existence. I think Houston would be a lot of fun, and if not Houston, then KC because I already went against them in the last one. So take that for what it's worth.
He would actually make a bit more sense in KC than Hollywood, actually. A bit younger. He's the projected contract a little bit less than the Hollywood one.
Just call him
Um,
MVS. If you put him in KC's, call him MVS.
yeah, but you know what? Maybe. But I'm gonna go with Pats. I'm gonna finally give Zach one here. This seems like a Pats signing. When you look at the receiving options they've signed in the past, the last few years, they never make a huge splash, but they always get some kind of name that people know enough of, but aren't an alpha.
Yeah, we love collecting wide receiver threes and twos.
Yep. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Zach, we had one tight end to talk about, and he signed a contract about an hour, no, a little more than an hour, but a little longer than that. But other than that, we had pretty auxiliary pieces. But last year it was like super deep in tight ends. We had a pretty good conversation about, but nonetheless, thank you for chalking that all up for us and getting us some fun stuff to talk about here in free agency and get some of the competitive juices flowing and get back into the old fantasy pool. But as I mentioned at the end of every episode, we do was an ice cold hot take. And with Zach putting in the legwork here and having a little bit of fun, we figure, you know what, this is his episode to take care of this one and take over. So without further ado, I'll hit this drop. This is one of my favorite drops. I look forward to it every year when we hit it because it's yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I'll hit the drop and we'll get Zach to fire up our 2024 campaign of ice cold hot takes.
You're not on fire, Ricky Bobby. I'm on fire.
All right. So this hot take is, I don't know, thematic, I guess. Over the past hour, we've talked a lot about quarterbacks and how the quarterbacks that go in free agency will indirectly impact the quarterbacks that go, or I guess the teams that the quarterbacks go to in April in the NFL draft. Um, and that kind of ties into this hot take. When it comes time to draft these rookie quarterbacks in your dynasty leagues, especially in 2 QB dynasty leagues, super flex, or just 2 QB leagues, I have a take that might be a little contrarian to some. I think a lot of people for the past however long have viewed Caleb Williams, the presumptive first overall pick in the NFL draft, as the slam dunk 101 in Superflex or in 2QB dynasty drafts come April, May, June. I am here to tell you that you should consider taking Jaden Daniels at the 101 in
Ooh,
2QB or Superflex leagues.
that's hot. That's not
And
where I thought you were going with this.
I'll tell you why. Looking at the stats from this past season, 7 out of the top 12 quarterbacks had over 250 rushing yards. That is a Konami code. That is the cheat code that you need to ascend into that QB1 conversation. Is you have to have a rushing floor of 250 passing yards, or you just have to be able to throw the ball out of the field, out of the stadium. Now, 3 out of the top 4 quarterbacks this year had over 500 rushing yards. So we're starting to see a correlation here that if you're a quarterback that is able to run the ball, you are more likely to be a higher scoring player in fantasy football. I could see Caleb Williams, the presumptive 101 in the actual NFL draft, having the type of rushing upside of maybe a Patrick Mahomes, 300 yards, 400 yards a season, which that, kind of fits the mold, almost fits the mold of that 500-yard threshold. 400 is pretty close to 500. Let's not do the math there. But Jaden Daniels, he is somebody that I could easily see fitting that mold of a quarterback that gets you 500 plus yards per season, which would skyrocket him, I think, a lot easier, more easy to that upper echelon of quarterbacks than, say, Caleb Williams would. Now, is there some risk associated with this? Absolutely. But I think if you're drafting for upside, you're drafting for a player that could be a top 5 quarterback, I think you should seriously consider taking Jaden Daniels. God, I hope future New England Patriot Jaden Daniels with the 101 in
Okay,
your
so
2QB or Superflex dynasty drafts.
here's my rebuttal. And my rebuttal is proposed by a question. Okay, so, or I guess a statement involved in this too, I guess. It's all kinds of acclamations. So here's where I thought you were going with that. When you were talking off the Caleb Williams, I thought you were going to say, don't go Caleb Williams, go Marvin Harrison. That's where I thought you were going with that statement. And then I was like, okay, well, this has taken a turn for unprecedented conversation. Because I was like, okay, this is a perfect conversation. My partner and I in our Big Money Dynasty League, we have the 101. We have a plethora of quarterbacks. We have Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and we have Kirk Cousins. And then like several down the list, like probably could cut at any moment, but keep them for injury risk type guys. Anyways,
Sure.
so we're conundrum of like, do we go 101 Caleb Williams or do we go 101 and this is super flex or do we go Marvin Harrison? And we need wide receivers. So like, is that where we need to go? We can't trade back to 102. We thought like, let's make this guy make the decision and then we'll just roll with it. We have 3 first-round picks, so we're in a situation where it's like, okay, what do we do? And I wanted to bring it up on the pods, but this is perfect. Like, this is where we need to have this conversation. But you would still take Jaden Daniels over Marvin Harrison regardless. So I was like, hey, this is taken away from my dilemma here. I'm making this about myself. So, but Zach is still saying, okay, I'd still go Q, but I would go Daniels instead of Williams. So that took a big wild turn for me. So then I guess let's put this back. You're going Daniels 1 in Superflex. Who's your 2? In Super
I would be now it's going to be landing spot, draft capital dependent from the actual NFL draft. I would be as bold as to go 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterback.
Yeah.
Harrison 5.
That would be wild.
Harrison could be the best wide receiver prospect in the past several drafts, going back to Chase, going back beyond that. But still, in those leagues, the leagues that I play in, quarterback play is gold.
Yeah, you need the cues.
You will see a middle of the road quarterback 14, which in a 2 QB league, that's a starter, QB 14.
Yeah.
That's a really good starter. That's better than some teams' wide receiver ones. I bet you quarterback 14 finished better than wide receiver 10 for points on the season. I bet.
Okay, we have the
So-
106. So like my thought process, and I'm going to tell you my side of the coin, and I've been wishy-washy, so I can't even say like this is where I'm the soapbox I'm standing on. My thought process was, yes, Marvin Harrison is here. Like he, and you can't see, we don't have YouTube anymore, but like he's up here, upper echelon. But then like I see Neighbors very, very high. And I don't know if it's 1A, 1B scenario, but I definitely see that he is the clear two. So like why wouldn't I talk me out of this, take the best Q available at 101 and then hope he's there at 106 and there is a big Q run and all 4 Qs and Harrison go, and then we get the number 2 wide receiver with the number 1 Q. I don't know. I'm having a conundrum, and a conundrum is an understatement.
Yeah. So my example that I just gave, quarterback 14 on the season, that was Russell Wilson. 246 fantasy points.
Who you can get for nothing.
Yeah. Using half-point scoring. He scored more points than all but 4 wide receivers. So, like, quarterback is gold in those drafts. So even if you take QB 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you take Harrison, who could easily be the best player in the draft, talent-wise, even if you have a lot of quarterbacks, you could flip. You should be able to flip Kirk Cousins for, a good receiver and then something, or multiple first-round draft picks that you can later invest into a skill position.
My argument is trading Trevor Lawrence for a very good starting player plus draft capital. Try and go and get the 104 and a starter, or the 107 and a starter. Because then you're putting your eggs in the rookie Q basket. Regardless, I'm not trying to take away from hot take or whether you think it's Daniels or Williams or whatever. You're taking the best player you think at that position available. But then you don't need 4 high caliber options. So I don't know. Conversation for another day, maybe as we find landing spots and we start doing some mock drafting and stuff, maybe a conversation for that day. But a conundrum nonetheless that teams have. I know Armin, you're 101 in a single Q league. It's a much easier decision there. But once you add that super flex layer and the importance of the Q, like Zach has mentioned, it adds that wrinkle in that conversation. You're not the only person to have a similar take as this, Zach. I heard a similar take of this on another pod, and he got attacked by guys on the pod, trying to poke holes through it. But the logic at the end of the day was very similar to the logic you're proposing. Is he the best quarterback in fantasy football or in the NFL draft? No, or else he'd be a clear-cut 101. But is he the best possible quarterback for fantasy football? Very likely. There's a lot of arguments we look at guys that we have where Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? I would say very much so. Yeah, he's a top 5 quarterback. But there's years he could finish as the 12th or 13th quarterback in the NFL because he doesn't rush. If his passing touchdowns are low that year, he's going to be low. Where you see Lamar Jackson, even on a down year, he's still super high because he rushes so much. Where you see I'm trying to draw a couple more names here, even
Justin Fields is a
thank you, perfect
great
example. It's a perfect example. I'm also going to throw another hot take in here, Zach, that I think he gets traded to Las Vegas Raiders. We didn't get a chance to talk about that in the free agency period, but I'm gonna sprinkle that one in there. But I guess I'm adding to your argument while also arguing against myself, I suppose. But yeah, it's this is going to be so much fun because we have this time to have this banter and have this argument before the draft. Like we already know Caleb Williams. I shouldn't say we already know, but I mean I can make a very educated guess that Caleb Williams is going to be in Chicago. Then after that, it's just chaos. It could turn complete chaos. Free agency, draft period. It could be chaos, and there is a very good chance that it could be Daniels in New England, and then you take that one and you compare right there, right? Then you have the spots, and now it's just they have to go and play. What do you think's best? And oh, it's going to be fun if that's the situation, especially if New England makes a big splash and gets a real fancy new toy in the wide receiver position. So yeah, there's some solid arguments there, and I'll be honest, you took me for a turn. I did not see that one coming.
Had you in the first half.
Yeah, yeah. Not gonna lie, they had me in the first half. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Anything else to add there, Zach, before we wrap this one up?
No, I think you said it great. Like Armand in that one QB setting, Harrison, that's maybe you feel differently. I think Harrison's the guy. I've heard a few people the last couple weeks, neighbors getting some love for 101, but Harrison's kind of the chalk pick right now. But in that two quarterback setting, it really changes the game, and it really balances out the quarterback position.
And it makes those back end first round picks a little more valuable too. That's like I shouldn't say a love hate relationship. Like I like both. I'm in a dynasty league where it's a single Q league, and I'm in a dynasty league where it's super flex, and it has its the pros and cons either way. But the one part about the super flex league is that it makes the back end first round picks more valuable. Where in a single Q league, really the 110, what is that? Like it's a dart throw, hopeful randomness that's probably unlikely to hit. Where a back end first in a super flex league, you're seeing guys that would be 105, 106 possibly going, depending on how many Qs there are in the draft. This year we have 4 or 5 Qs that go in the first round of super flex leagues. Like
Yeah,
that just drops those talent into those back end picks. You know what I mean? Like
I think last year I got in my super flex league, I think I got Addison at like 9 or 10.
yeah, and would he go 103? I think in ours.
Yeah, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, adds an extra layer. We've had a conversation, and we're going to talk about it on the off season here. This is the perfect time for us to have this conversation. We did a little bit of a rules review in our league that we all dyno together. We all own a team in that league, and we had conversation back and forth about changing some rules and how long the period is to change rules and stuff like that. And we'll have that conversation on another episode. But it's fun to have some wrinkles that are a little bit different league to league, and people have their preferences and whatnot. But adding that extra wrinkle to this conversation is, and you know what, Zach, I think single quarterback league, that's a no brainer. What you just said, because you're going pure upside. Whereas in a 2 QB league, if you miss big. But in a single Q league, if you miss on a Q, there's lots of options. Like you need one and one only. But you want like the upside of having the number one quarterback in a single Q league. You know what I mean? There's a clear difference when you have that player. So yeah, that's an added wrinkle that makes this a lot more fun. Armin, you got anything to add before we wrap this one up?
All I gotta say is I think Zach turned this episode into a Pat's wish list episode of what he wants to see from his team. Although I did hijack a little bit with the Vikings.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be a fresh take for the listeners because they're used to me hijacking the pod talk with the Lions. So I'll let this episode be about Zach, and then we'll come back strong in 2 weeks from here. So anyhow, lengthy one. They're not all this long. I'm gonna be honest with you. Usually we still try and keep them around an hour, so I'll keep it fresh, keep it fun. But we got a lot of content to go through here, and there's the first episode back. So we're pretty excited about this one to have the conversations and have some fun and have some landing spots and whatnot, as well as getting the ice cold hot takes back in action. So thanks for listening at home. We're super happy to be back here. One added thing I'm gonna say too is that we have our merchandise that is going to be coming for sale right away here. I'll be posting that on social media. I know there's lots of people that were asking for questions about the hoodies and t-shirts and stuff like that. So that'll be coming out, and stay posted on that one. Regardless, thanks for listening. Welcome back to the podcast, and we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Let's talk soon.